Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Sports Hub podcast. This week marked my return to five-a-side football. If I was a player on Football Manager, my matchday fitness would have been 47% and my overall condition would have been even less. But it was a good day. It distracted me from the fiasco of Celtic's manager search. Almost there with Eddie Howe. Almost there with Ange Pontesclos getting an exception from his qualifications. But yes, almost there. Also summarised the five-a-side football in a strange way. When Gavin went to save a shot, almost there, Gavin. When Shahan went to score, almost there, past the post. When Bruce chased the ball, almost there. But it was a good day. But there was one noticeable absence, and that was Mitchell. But it's good to see that you've recovered from your fall and that you're here this evening. And it's also good to see Shahan back on the podcast, I should say. I hope the chair remains stable and you don't go over it. But yeah, five-a-sides is probably not the place to look at, our five-a-sides anyway, if you want notable, high-quality football. But one place where you can find that will be Euro 2020 being hosted in 2021, which starts on Friday. And I'm going to pass over to Martin to lead this topic for our review.
Right, so I'm buzzing for the Euros, actually really looking forward to it, especially Scotland being involved. We spoke last week about Scotland, so we can sort of look at the other teams involved. Quick rundown of the Euro group stages, because I think it's as clear as mud. 4 teams in 6 different groups. Top 2 teams go through. The third place team out of the 6 groups, 4 of the 6 will go through. That'll depend on, first of all, how many points you get. So the 2 with the least amount of points will leave the tournament. And if it's a tie, it goes into goal difference and then goals scored. So Scotland are looking pretty good to have a decent chance of finishing third. And if they finish third, they just have to be doing better than any of the other 2 groups that are not going to make it. So I want to look at who we actually think, who we're looking forward to watching first. So Shahan, who are you actually looking forward to watching at the Euros?
I think Belgium, I supported them in the last World Cup, and I think they've got a brilliant squad. And I'm actually looking forward to maybe supporting them this year as well, if Scotland don't go through. But Scotland were definitely my team. I'm looking forward to watching Scotland after the performances at the qualifiers and these past couple of games in the friendlies. And maybe Portugal, because I think they've got a pretty decent squad this year.
Mitchell, who do you like the look of this year?
I like the look of France. I think that's quite how strong their squad is. But I think that group, France, Portugal, and who's the third big team?
Germany and Hungary.
Germany and Hungary. I think any
group of death.
Yeah. I think that group will be interesting to watch. And any of the, no offense to Hungary, any of the top 2, unless Hungary get an upset, any of those top 2 teams are definitely going to be in a shout and be a good watch.
That group, we're kind of hoping that everybody beats Hungary, so that Hungary are one of the lowest placed. Actually, it would make any difference.
No,
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
James, who are you looking forward to? Is there any teams that you're looking forward to seeing?
Italy. I think they're the quiet underdogs. They function as a team very well. Mancini's got them looking like a unit. They look like they've played together regularly, and that's quite a hard achievement in international football. So I think they'd be an underdog, but France will be the favourites.
Gavin?
I think it's automatic you're going to have to say Scotland, especially with it being the first time that a lot of the fans are going to see them at a major tournament. I know at my work are actually looking at bringing a TV in to watch the games, which it's just that everyone's kind of got that buzz about them. As you said, you're buzzing for it. especially after seeing a couple of the friendlies. It's clear that Steve Clark watches the podcast and listens to some of our advice here and there.
If you think the Scotland manager listens to the podcast, then he's one of the 12 viewers.
We've made it,
Someone
boys.
had
We've
listened
made
to
it.
it.
When you wish upon a star is all I can tell you, Gavin.
Aye. So looking at the odds, obviously these will be with English bookmakers. So England are favourites, 4-1. Then it's France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and as it goes down, Portugal, Holland, and Scotland aren't mentioned in the top 10 for some reason. I think looking at the teams, the Euros is massive because it's the best teams in the world, really. Kind of out the top. I didn't really like going with the FIFA rankings too much, but the top 10 teams in the world, 7 of them for Europe. So you're not getting diluted with all your Asian and African teams. These are the best teams in the world, and if Scotland can get through the first stage, go on then, James. You got to correct me.
Ange Pontescolo managed Australia. Don't diss them.
Aye, riveting football at that point as well, wasn't it? I think it is, to me, a bit. I don't know. It's bigger than the World Cup. So obviously, it's the World Cup's bigger, but there's a stronger teams as it gets through the group stages. You didn't get that many small teams that are making it through, and even finishing third in the group. Portugal, last time they finished third in the group, go through and end up winning it. So that can make all the difference with it. With terms of the groups, I mean, obviously Scotland will top our group. Who do we think sort of topping the groups? Is there any players in the teams that you're sort of fancying?
Actually gets my phone to see what the group.
I'll go there. Group A, we have Italy, Switzerland, Turkey, and Wales.
Italy.
Italy.
It's going to be a bella notte when Italy top the group. Mancini will be sitting there with the champagne, like, here we go.
Why would it be in French?
Because Gavin doesn't know Italian.
Mancini speaks multiple languages.
You could wait till Group F to make that statement, Gav. Group B, you got Belgium, Denmark, Finland, and Russia. Denmark are obviously they're a bit better team than everybody gets some credit for their top 10 in the world. But Belgium should win that.
Yeah, Belgium, I think, is definitely the winner on that one.
Who comes set? It'll be a fight for second in that group.
Aye.
I still think I think it'll be Belgium, Denmark. Yeah.
Group C, we've got Austria, Netherlands, North Macedonia, and Ukraine. That's probably one of the easier groups out of them all, which probably says how strong the other groups are.
Netherlands could top that. They've not been as good.
I was going to say Austria are playing a good shot because, no offence, the Netherlands only drew with us because of a soft penalty. Yeah, I think they won the night, but they're not as strong a team as their history makes you believe they are.
Didn't North Macedonia win like 4-0 against some team? Oh no, they won against Kazakhstan. Never mind.
Group D is obviously the most important one: Croatia, Czech Republic, the scum down south, and Scotland.
Well,
I think Scotland would. I think Scotland will get that.
Aye,
Scotland, you can fly. It will be Scotland flying.
I think Scotland
needs top of the group.
To have the. We've all got to have the belief about Scotland.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's going to be anything that can dampen the belief until the first whistle, and they were like, "Oh shit, here we go."
first whistle, 30 seconds, 1-0 down.
No, but if I was to be more realistic, I think it would be England then Scotland. Maybe I think Scotland definitely had a decent chance of finishing even second. But I think definitely is going to be I do think it's going to be England taking the lead on that one.
I think
I hate to say it, but I think it will be.
Look, it's completely Beauty and the Beast, and England's the Beast. They'll be down the bottom. Scotland are top in this group.
but
The beauty that they are.
I think Steve Clarke will be sitting here, and I might be biased because I want Scotland to do well, but I genuinely think he'll be sitting there saying, how far will I go? How far can Scotland take in the Euros? Because I think we should not just be aiming for the knockout. We should be aiming for the next stage after that. Let's be ambitious.
Right. Well, funny you should say that. I'll get onto that once we get go for the last two groups. Group E, it's an interesting one for me. Poland, Slovakia, Spain, and Sweden. The return of Ibra for Sweden. Spain's going to top that.
Isn't Sweden out? Isn't Zlatan out? Is he not out injured?
Is he injured?
Making it?
Well,
Yeah, I'm sure.
It would have been the return of Zlatan.
Yeah, he's meant to be back. I'm sure he's out injured.
I'll be controversial and say Poland.
Poland.
I'm going to agree with Gavin on that one. I think it'll be Poland. I think Spain's front line is what's going to let them down. I think, especially when their starting centre forward is Morata.
You're just bitter that there's no Real Madrid players in this team.
I'm sorry, but what Real Madrid, to be fair, I don't think many Real Madrid players would make much of a difference going forward.
And they've swapped Laporte for Ramos. Laporte's switched countries and now playing for Spain and not France.
Instead of
and Ramos isn't getting the same.
I thought Laporte was Portuguese, so he's got three different countries apparently now.
No, he was French.
Was it French, right? Okay.
Used to play for the French youth teams and he swapped to Spain.
Yeah. Belanotti, French.
Group F, France, Germany, Portugal, Hungary.
It'll be a Belanotti when France top the group.
It's hard to see past France in that group. They're too strong all over. Yeah. Germany have got striker issues, and Portugal, dark horse, but I don't think.
I think that could be a group where Martin said Portugal finished third in the group, and I think that might be the case again, and they might end up going and winning the full thing at the end again.
Was it not when they won it? They didn't win a single game in 90 minutes or something like that.
All draws. So they drew their first 3 games in the group stage, and they got through because they were third and they had 3 points. And then they went in extra time in all the games, and it was Eder that scored.
Yeah.
So Scotland know how to do it. It's a template right there.
Big Davy Marshall versus Ronaldo, 5th penalty.
As long as it's no 22nd penalty. So looking at Group D as our group, the winners of Group D will play the runners-up in the Group of Death, Group F. So I don't actually want to win our group.
No, we definitely don't want to win our group.
Who's the runners-up yet?
We could beat Hungary.
And the runner,
of course it will be.
The runners-up in Group D play the runners-up in Group E, which is Poland, Slovakia, Spain, and Sweden. So if I assume Spain wins that, you're talking Poland or Sweden, or possibly Spain. If Poland, Sweden, or Spain, I would say Slovakia.
That's a hard game.
Even then, that's a hard game.
I prefer that than Germany.
Oh yeah,
that's very true.
For sure.
You get that, but then no
it
doesn't actually the game against Germany. The fans would just be like,
after these group stages, straight knockouts, yeah,
and it'd be less pressure on the players.
Yeah.
Quarterfinals.
I think the fans will be happy just with showing up and getting a decent performance. If we get out of the group, then we've achieved some form of a goal, I think.
Yeah, and with Steve Clarke manager, surely you want to be allowed to play a little bit more defensively. So getting the group of death might not be the worst thing to happen. Plus, that means that we'd have probably bet England. And if we've bet England,
we'll be happy.
We'd be happy, and you can probably beat Germany.
Yeah. Counter attack. Shea McAdams with the header.
Well, that would be
also, if we finish third and still qualify qualify, I'm just double checking this, there is still a possibility that we play the quarter final at Hampden. If we come third in the group, we'll end up playing the winner of Group E at Hampden. Well,
So
it's
that could be
between 2 or 3 teams.
So that could be Spain and Sweden.
So the other one, the run-up doesn't get. But so we would be the only club that would go to a Euros that's not based in our country and play just about every game at home. Nice, I suppose. Considering you can't actually travel, works no bad.
Again, considering when the stadiums and the fixtures for the stadiums got announced before the teams were obviously qualified, we were planning on going down to Trafalgar Square for the Scotland-England game for the weekend.
Yes.
Whereas now it's a case of why we're not obviously not going to be stupid enough to travel, but then we're allowed in each other's gardens now. We're still going to actually have a chance, which I didn't think would be possible at the start of the year, but we're still going to have a chance to be together and have a day of watching the football, watching the Scotland-England game, which is probably the biggest game that Scotland have played in terms of against the, as Martin called them, scum.
the disgust in James's face, and the fact that I currently own a T-shirt saying "Anybody but England." I will use. You're welcome to come over here for a couple of the games. I might have enough chairs. Don't know.
As long as I don't sit on a chair.
Shahan, bring your own.
We should be good.
Aye.
UIOC.
Or don't let Derek break it first. Derek, if you're listening, I blame that on you. Even though there might be a picture evidence of me.
Not a maybe picture evidence.
Right, is there anybody who wants to say anything else about the Euros? Anybody looking forward to anything else with it?
I'm looking forward to Spain not being near contention of winning a tournament. And I say that, and it kind of builds on Gavin's points about national anthems. The whole Spanish team do not sing the national anthem because Spain doesn't have any lyrics. I was like, surely you can be a bit patriotic in your country and put some words together to describe your country and what it stands for. You literally just have a boring 2-minute piece of music. Sorry for any Spanish viewers, but it's true. You've got a boring national anthem.
That's the same for England as well, though. Like
I'm pretty sure there's words in there.
I like the full anthem. I think it's a good anthem, but not for when you're about basically go to like play a decent sport and things like that. And you've got that.
It's depressing.
It's the fact that
exactly a depressing tune playing in the background.
Scotland gets you built up.
Exactly, yeah. And you're literally singing the same lyric about 10 times over.
And also,
it doesn't actually talk about UK or England as a country.
Because the Queen is the Constitution, basic constitutional law. She is the Constitution.
They're going to have to change the words as well as soon as Big Liz kicks the bucket.
Do you know what I find funny? We were talking about Monty Python last week. And the way that James has just said, I feel like the Queen's going to come in and go, "This is my land."
It's just a script.
That sounded too Scottish. That sounded like William Wallace.
I know.
So I'll go to another one. I have the ethos of anybody but England, but that's not that kind of goes the same as club football level as well. I'll go anybody but Hearts, anybody but Rangers and Celtic. Yeah, a lot of teams.
Anybody but Hamilton.
Yeah. Where does everybody else sit on the supporting / non-supporting of England? Keep in mind it's one of the leagues that you sort of watch the most and you know all the players. Does anybody get a wee sort of buzz when they're playing and you want to score? And James is going to answer this last.
You leave him for last, Jeff. The thing that
Shahan. Oh, sorry, Gav.
The thing that I'm looking forward to about England is the potential upset of Scotland beating them, and the news article taking homage from Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. They did it with Celtic and Cali Thistle when Cali Thistle romped them. I'm looking for Super Scotland go ballistic. England are atrocious. That's what I'm hoping for. The odds of it happening, I don't know, but we'll live in hope.
Shahan, what's your thoughts? Do you ever sort of get a wee buzz to watching England, like see them score goals? Is there any other players that you actually like to see doing well?
What, from England? Or
Yeah.
England getting beat? No, not from England. Like imagine 1 year where Scotland goes down to Twickenham and beats England in rugby, and then Scotland goes down to Wembley and beats England in football. That would be like 2021 will be the best year for Scotland if that happens.
We
Like,
all know they're all
I
genuine
don't,
at that
know,
I
point.
will be.
I don't know if
I will
anybody
be-
else noticed, but Mitchell had a wee expression on his face that oh, that happened. Oh.
Yeah, and when that does happen, we know it's the end of the world.
I would actually break all the chairs in your back garden if that happened.
To be
I
fair,
Oh,
was
you're halfway
smashing.
there.
I was,
If there was a-
I was smashing my happiness.
if there was
I
a
would be
year it was
singing
going to
like
happen, this is it. If there's a year it's going to happen, this is it. It's the weirdest year ever.
Imagine that, like, all of us stood in your back garden singing along, having like a little zipper-dee-doo-da, enjoying the moment, beating England. That'd be brilliant.
Mitchell, genuine question for you. Will you be supporting Wales?
Ooh.
Ooh. No.
No.
You have to think about that. You have
You're
to
not
think
a
about that a
sports
lot.
fan.
Not a fan of sports, so I can avoid that topic. It's fine. Got to get a jail-free clause, and she gave me it.
So, Mitchell, England, are you going to
Yeah.
be supporting England or even any of their players? Kind of, if Mount pops one in the top corner against Scotland, are you going to be happy just celebrating?
Oh no, I won't say I like. When it comes to playing Scotland, I hope they're all atrocious. But every other game, I hope it's someone other than James, Chilwell, or Mount that costs England the game.
Yeah.
And judging by the England backline, it could well be.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much. As long as England don't win.
I have a massive issue with the English media. Always have, and every World Cup they mention 66 just in the first 3 seconds. I've got to give James the floor in just a second, and I think it's English media that sort of annoy me more than anything else. I do have a couple of the players that I quite like. Grealish, I quite like a few of the players. I want to see them do well. I don't want to see the team win.
Can I jump in before you give James?
Just before James, yeah.
Because I was watching it was a couple of years ago now, and must have been when was it Euros when England got to the semi-finals, got beat by Croatia.
Yep.
Yeah, I was watching. I think I was watching the hockey or something like that. It's like 5 minutes into a GB hockey match, they mentioned England World Cup run. I'm like, no, sorry, it was the NFL Super Bowl. It was the Super Bowl, 2017, I think it was, and they mentioned England's run. I'm like, how? There's nothing to do. Like, how? It's like
There was even a couple of snide comments about Scotland when I changed the channel after Scotland drew with the Netherlands because I'm not allowed to call them Holland anymore. Changed the channel to them, and a couple of comments to the commentators just sort of, I didn't care what Scotland did. Didn't care, not important. But I think they dig their own stuff. James.
Wait. Before we go to James, Martin, to back up the English media thing, is the classic one of Andy Murray.
Oh, that's rubbish. I'm sorry.
When he does well, he's British.
Research into
When he does poor, he's
It's an
Scottish.
illusion. All I can say to you all, I'm trying to be civil, but sorry, that is just rubbish. All I can say to you guys is this obsession about England, and it's an obsession about England, just let it go. Just let it go. Concentrate on Scotland and be happy about Scotland doing well in the Euros. What I say to, hi ho, I'm going to get hate on Twitter anyway, so I don't care. What I'm going to say is, England, you've got a friend in me. Not when you're playing us, because I want Scotland to win, but England, you can do well. You can come second.
Didn't know Anthony was English.
James, I want to be like you. But I am not supporting England, no matter what. And I don't want them to do well.
What? You want to be like James?
Sometimes.
I find it funny how
Sometimes
he's
when
saying
he
that
uses
we're
big
all
words.
obsessed. I find it funny he's saying we're all obsessed with England, just like he's obsessed with SNP. Yeah?
With who?
You heard.
The party that rules Scotland at the moment.
Anyway, we're not going to drag it into being political on this podcast because
Bruce isn't here.
We go from
I got
11 viewers to 7.
right. Anyway, that's about all I've got to say on the Euro stuff. So, Gavin, you're going to talk to us about the possibility of transfers.
Yes, so with the season ending, it naturally means the transfer window's open. For those of you who don't know what the transfer window is, you're on the wrong podcast, first of all. But it's a period of time where players can interchange between teams for a fee. But my thing isn't about wanting to talk about the rumours that are going about Haaland going to wherever, Sancho in talks. I'm wanting to focus on the Scottish teams and what teams need to do within Scotland to achieve their goals. So, Kilmarnock, just been relegated. James is going to say Celtic needs to get a manager first. Like Kilmarnock, they've been relegated. They've lost a lot of their players. I think they only have 5.
I see the thing with Lafferty with them.
Yeah, Lafferty wanted a quadruple of his wage because he scored 13 goals in 13 games. So yeah, he got told to bolt. But like Martin, I want to come to you. I want to get your opinion on this because your team, obviously being the Hobos, they are in the European Conference League for next season. What do you think they need to do transfer wise in order to succeed and potentially progress in Europe?
I think when a team does well, your first priority is making sure you keep the players that are there. So you look at Nisbet, who's in the Scotland squad. He got a goal against Netherlands. He seems to be the first striker off the bench if he's playing Adams and Dykes. So he could quite easily go to the Euros, get a goal here or there, and quadruple his transfer fee and get a move. Don't really want that. Quite happy to see him get a couple of goals, but kind of want to keep him. Second highest goal scorer last season. There's a couple of other players who I reckon are Porteous. I really like, but he's likely to have a mistake or two in him. Hopefully it sort of grows out his game. But there is players that we kind of need to move on, refresh the team, and strengthen. Scott Allen should be coming back in. He's had injuries of some sort for a while, so he'll be coming back in like a new player. But main thing for us is keeping the players involved.
James, apart from a manager, what would you say that your team that you mentioned 30 seconds into the podcast this evening need to do to regain the trophy?
At least
Replace every player.
At least I mentioned my team. But the goalkeeper, a right back, a left back, about 3 centre backs, a central defensive midfield player to complement Sorrow. We probably need another creative midfield player. We need somebody to replace Christie and Roderick. We need somebody to replace Edward, and we've always needed wingers for the past 2 years. So yeah, a whole team.
Basically, it's a new team.
I'll volunteer to be the subkeeper. Save them a bit of money.
After your performance at 5,
To be fair,
I know. I was going to say. I think you might have
a
lost the
couple of decent saves at 5. Kind of grumble. Kept him in the team.
bit rusty though, bit rusty.
Yep, I've not had pre-season yet.
James, I saw that
Distribution, very Craig Gordon. Distribution was off, but goalkeeping, shot stopping was pretty good.
You'll be
James,
proud.
I saw that El Yunusi. He's been quite a fan favourite with the Celtic fans over the past few years. Maybe
Has
not
he?
you, but yes, he has. Celtic wanted to make the deal permanent, but he's been linked with Frankfurt. Would that bother you if you didn't sign him permanently?
No.
When the interviewer expects to get a reaction and doesn't get it.
I want a director of football and a manager, and we can worry about everything else. And yeah,
But James, surely you've only just lost your manager. I mean, it takes time. It's not as if it was over 100 days ago.
it's 102 days. 102 days. I could have got 101 Dalmatians and a spare Dalmatian each day. It's ridiculous.
There you go. I know that Emma Stone's looking for a new job now that her role's finished in the Cruella de Vil movie. Maybe you can appoint her. Maybe she knows a bit of a tactical, get our dots over the whiteboard.
No, we've already tried a ginger manager. It didn't work.
Gingerly smart.
But she might not blame the fans like Neil Lennon did. I don't know if you saw that interview.
Yeah, did you?
Where he blamed the fans rather than his inadequate management, but it's fine.
To be fair, we all saw that.
So he blamed the fans
anyway.
when fans weren't even in the stadium.
Yeah, it's quite a feat.
Oh, you can blame the fans for petrol bombing the owners or chief executives' house though.
That was supposed to be organised crime rather than Celtic fans, so get the facts before you make the jibs.
Organised crime, organised crime, organised by
facts.
Celtic fans.
No, I don't.
Well, what is it? What is it, James?
Right, we're digressing, gentlemen. We're digressing. I'm going to bring it back to the topic here. I'm going to put my thumb down. To go on to the next bit, Shahan and Mitch, I know you aren't massive followers of Scottish football, but is there
The
any
only Scottish transfer I know of a rumour is the one I spoke to you earlier, and that's Chelsea apparently looking at Harvey Gilmore, which I think for Kelly might be a decent move because I think they'll probably get for Scottish football and for a 15-year-old play some decent money in that they could use to.
Is he related to Billy Gilmore by any chance?
Yes, his younger brother.
Is it actually?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I did actually see one. I think it was just based on this that Rangers might be getting Siroko Dembele from. Let me check.
QPR.
2 seconds. No, I think it was QPR. Petersburg, maybe. I want to say it was Petersburg, but let me double check.
Just talk amongst yourselves.
Anyway,
Peterborough forward. And apparently it's because his contract in Peterborough is near the end, and he's keen to come to Scotland, a winning club apparently.
I think
So that might
hashtag trigger James.
Yeah.
From my limited knowledge of Scottish football, what I can see, obviously looking at sort of your bigger sides, Celtic, as James said, they need a full rebuild, and I think they'll need to be looking to. I think they'll be looking to offload a few players. I think the biggest the only one I've heard rumoured is Edward to Leicester for 15 million, possibly.
18.
Is it with add-ons up to 18? There's be a decent transfer, depending. But again, there's another position for you to replace. I think for Rangers, it'll be a case of if they can keep that squad together. Because I think if they lose a couple pieces, if you lose like a Morelos or Kent, I think they might start coming apart a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they lose, even if they lose maybe like Goldson or someone like that in the back line.
Mm-hmm.
As well, they would be struggling. And as Martin said, for Hibs, if Nisbet does anything half decent at Euros, you could see a couple of clubs coming in for him, and that would hurt their position as the third.
It could be a Rangers or a Celtic coming for Nisbet.
That's true.
Or any of the clubs in England if he does do well in Euros. So.
Then when you look at Aberdeen are very similar to Celtic. I feel like they need a good few players in to actually start playing football because I've seen a couple games in there. For being one of the big teams.
Celtic, they've got a manager.
Yeah. Derek McInnes to Celtic.
James's face just dropped.
But again, Aberdeen they're one of those teams, for being one of the historically and still currently one of the bigger teams in Scotland, it's how can you not play football? It's like
Because
many ways to play football.
Guinness.
Yeah, fair enough, that answers it. But it's like, as one of the bigger teams, like, yes, they play football, but its long ball is really. It's Scott Brown football, which ironically really fits him very well.
No, that's harsh. That's not Scott.
I don't think I expected James to get so triggered by this. But
It's been both topics so far too.
I know.
Yeah.
We,
Nail on the head.
with Mitchell mentioning Kilmarnock, obviously the possible departure of Gilmore, they have made, I believe, one signing from what I've seen, and it's one signing that I said in the podcast a few episodes ago of a player who I would take at Hearts was Ewan Murray. He's been a brilliant player for Dunfermline this season. Centre back, centre defensive midfielder was their captain. So from what I've read, he's went there. But apart from that, there's been not much happening so far. I think a lot of people are waiting for the Euros to get out of the way before anything happens. However, probably the most exciting time for transfers and rumours is now, where the Premier League and the Championship are coming up with their released lists of players who are not getting a contract renewal. Do we think we can see anyone from these kind of bigger teams moving up to Scotland? I know one of them that happened a few years ago was Yusuf Malumbu. Came up after his contract expired at West Brom. Can we see any of them, maybe aging players or even younger players coming through the systems, getting a chance up north?
No, if they've got any brains in it. I think it's a difficult thing to come up to Scotland to play football, to see your career. The amount of players that came up here expecting an easy ride and just haven't had it.
Joey Barton.
Aye, and you see, I think it's an interesting the amount of players that went from mainly from Celtic Rangers to England and then done extremely well. And the players that are coming up the way, you're getting a couple that have maybe hit the ground running, but it's not a place I would go to go in the wine do. That's me.
The biggest one I remember is Carlton Cole going to Celtic and did atrocious.
Well, the one that I remember is Dion Dublin.
Aye.
We got him
Roy Keane
on Homes Under the Hammer, so that was good for him. We had Robbie Keane, who actually did quite well.
Yeah,
Robbie Keane did good.
Craig Bellamy.
Robbie Keane was still a great player at that point. So was Bellamy. They still had a lot of years left in them.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, did they all come up quite when they were quite young? Because
early 30s.
They still had football in them.
Jermaine Defoe. Defoe came up, and I think he's done not bad. He's not played much, but he's not done bad. Whenever he's been on, whenever he's been on par, he's made an impact. So that's another one there. If it not, I'm just giving another option to what you guys are saying. So.
But I'm just looking at the Premier League release list here, and I'm thinking, as James is saying, they're looking for. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of players. I think I'll go fire a couple of names at James, see if he would take them at Celtic.
Wait, one that I actually thought about this, Mitchell, before you go.
Yeah.
I saw Christian Fuchs from Leicester. I saw he was not getting his contract renewed. Would you take him, James?
No.
Okay, here's a couple. From Palace, Gary Cahill.
No.
It's a lot for Palace.
Too slow.
Scott Dan.
No, too slow.
Nathaniel Klein.
Shane Duffy.
Duffy, yeah.
You wouldn't take Gary Cahill?
No, he's too slow.
No, it's too old. Too old.
Still.
Nathaniel Klein. No, too injury prone.
Wayne Hennessy.
No.
Really? That would be a decent keeper.
What's the word I'm
Too
looking for?
propaganda.
Too
Andros
unpredictable.
yes, I'm just still on just Palace here. Andros Townsend.
No.
I'll take him.
Patrick Van Aanholt.
No.
Joel Ward.
No. I don't like Crystal Palace.
I'm not smart.
That was getting pretty obvious. But obviously, there's a few of them that will stay there. It's just they haven't got a new manager yet, so
Yeah,
Crystal
Uh,
Palace. Crystal
uh,
Palace is to James as Hamilton is to Martin. But Mitchell, I'm glad you brought that up and actually listed those players because James has rejected them all, which brings us very well into our third topic about transfer strategy. And James is going to lead us through that. So, James, why would you not take any of them?
Well, it is part of the reason for transfer strategy. I think football, we have a tendency to be driven by emotion, to be driven by first impressions, and to be driven by reputation. And I think if you build your team around these three areas, bias, reputation, and first impression, you're going to build a pretty horrible team pretty quickly. And I think it is yes.
This is the whole reason that Scott Brown has been in the Celtic squad for the past 3 years when he shouldn't be.
Well,
Bias, first impression, and emotion.
I think sentiment comes into it as well. That's another thing we can get rid of. Sentiment, no emotion. I'm not saying that we turn into robots because there is a human element to football transfers, but the notion of, I think, for transfer strategy, it's kind of like an orchestra, and you, the manager or the director of football, whoever's in head of transfers, is the conductor. And what you want to build is like a fantasia, where it's nice, complement each other, but what people tend to do is big reputation, which is like the gongs, boom, 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 and it just clangy, doesn't make nice music, but people are saying we've got them, so it's all nice and cheery. And I would want not just my team, Celtic, but I think football would be much better off if they went into a more strategic outlook when doing transfers and saying, what does the manager want? What profile fits this in terms of tactics, personality, and the basic attributes that the team needs. And my question is, why is football not getting to that stage when other sports are? Why is football so outdated in terms of how managers go about building their teams together?
To
I think
answer
a
that question, James, I'm going to go back to your question. You said outdated, and you're comparing it to an orchestra. You lost Martin at that point. Martin's face just went from being like engaging to he sat back and he's like,
I understood, but I thought, no, a part of me died.
You died.
Just like orchestra.
The orchestra's not dead.
So
it's just outdated.
So
I'm getting angry.
I would,
My face is turning red.
I would back up with what Gavin's saying. As long as you've got managers like Sam Allardyce, Tony Pulis, they are they're old time managers. They do it their way. And I didn't want to make the association with age because it is older managers that are doing it the newer way. But I mean, you look at teams like Man United and the sort of the class in '82 that were going through. Paul Scholes, when they got a game at 14, 15-year-old with most teams, Manchester United kept him on and kept feeding him. And now everybody knows who he is, and in my opinion, one of the best centre midfielders England produced. But he's only got there because the way Man United had their scouting system, the way they had their youth system, a lot of the other clubs were still a bit dated at that point. So there is teams doing it, and obviously now Man United are now dated, and teams like Brentford are taking the lead role in what's the newest ways of doing things. I think there is teams doing it. I think reputation. It's weird when you have a player who does extremely well at one team and then just doesn't fit in the next team. I mean, you can go through them. Torres, I remember Shevchenko. I keep mentioning Chelsea strikers going to do well. Shane Duffy, but you have players that it's trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It's not working. It doesn't fit. And the thought as they went into it, the process yet, it was just buying a player for their name. So yes, it still does happen, and probably shouldn't at this point. I think there should be enough people in the background looking into these things to decide if it's going to work or not.
You mentioned about players doing well at one club, but not doing well at their next club. Do you think there's a psychological element to it as well, which hasn't been incorporated into transfer strategy?
I think
I think it depends on when you look. Like, if you look at, I say this season, God, bring up Chelsea. You look at like Saverna, Havertz, Ziyech, and all that. Like, all the new blood trying to bed them in during a pandemic where they couldn't go out, they couldn't socialise, and everything's on lockdown and they come to England. It's like, it's the same with other teams as well, but it's like, it has that effect on, like, you're not able to really bond or get used to living or anything like that because it's abnormal. But then I think when it comes to, there's a flip side to that. I think you look at someone like Shane Duffy. Shane Duffy came off the back of Brighton being actually a pretty good defensive unit.
it's James's face every time his name's mentioned.
Oh, it's just he keeps getting mentioned. But so Declan Rice, take an example that Chelsea were linked with him, or still are linked with him.
Well, I will always
Would
be
he
linked
have
with him,
been
I
a
think.
better signing in COVID times because West Ham's just around the river bend to Chelsea?
As opposed
Have
to
you got a map of
who,
London to prove that?
Yes, the Thames.
I think to answer your question, to do you, James, I'm going to answer your question with a question. It would be sign Declan Rice as opposed to who? As opposed to Timo Werner? It's like, well, they're different players. It would depend on
It was
who.
just no, I'm not saying either
No,
or.
like,
You were linked with all these players and Declan Rice.
In terms of being settled, Declan Rice probably would have settled easier because he's from London. I'm sure he's played with likes of Mount, James at England at youth level with Chelsea, I'm sure.
Yep. 8 years
Um,
old, under 10s, I'm sure they
And
played
also
all.
he's now part of it. He's also part of England setup for a little bit as well. So he's got used to some of the other players from Chelsea who play in the England squad as well, like Chilwell now. So he probably would have settled in a bit easier because he knows the guys. He's probably friends with the guys. Probably sits and plays FIFA with them. Whereas Timo doesn't really have that connection. I know. That's it. Aye, so like that sense, yes, it would. But in the sense of if it was like trying to sign Declan Rice because you want him to play as our Sterling centre forward, it wouldn't have worked. Like, he may have settled into the club, but he would have been like a Torres. He would be a total flop because it's just not. Well, it might not have been, but
I think also
it's not his position.
I think it also very much depends on like different playing styles of different clubs. Like a certain player could be amazing at this one club because that club or that game style of the playing style of that team is literally like kind of developed around him, or he's like very much integrated into it. And then they go to a different club and it's a completely different playing style, but that player's not able to adopt to it fast enough. So maybe sometimes management and things like that need to go out and look for players that might be able to fit into their playing style, rather than
as I was saying,
you get that a lot with. You get that a lot with South American players coming to England. I mean, it's a whole new world to them. I mean, there's a lot of South Americans that just take a long time to settle. On reflection, do you buy South Americans? There's Africans as well that obviously you've got the African Cup of Nations that you've got to take that into consideration when you're signing players because you're going to lose them for a time as well. There's a lot to take into account for them.
Gavin, we're talking about international players moving to a foreign league, but there's also the step up from a lower division to a higher division. If you were, like Hearts were recently announced, they had wanted somebody to lead the data analyst. If you were that person, you were telling Hearts who to sign. What would you look for somebody who's ready to make the step up into the unknown?
For me, as a Hearts fan, it would be a case of someone who's experienced it. See, James, you're pushing yourself laughing. I'm trying not to no bite on like yourself, you know.
Shahan just suffocated himself.
Yeah.
Did he choke on that lovely jumper?
Yeah.
T-shirt. I see his arm. T-shirt. It's a T-shirt.
T-shirt.
As a Hearts fan, James, for me, I want to see passion. There's the old saying with Hearts that the blood doesn't show in a maroon jersey, and there's been
neither does shite.
Passion must speak through money then.
We need to. There's not been enough of that recently, where there's been players who want to play for the badge, and it's been just playing for an easy payday. But when it comes to it being the transfer side of things, it's been very well documented, and Martin loves bringing this up many times, that Hearts have a massive turnaround of players over the last few years, and it's not really worked out. And the money that we're getting from selling players, like I think we sold Osman Sow for a big fee to China. We sold Patterson down south for a big fee. Nicholson went for a big fee. Walker went for a big fee. I mean, we're making Hickey recently to Italy, although we had to give 25% to Celtic fans.
Cochran.
Legitimate contract.
That's a sore one, Martin. That's a sore one. But the money needs to be reinvested wisely, and recently at Hearts it's not been. The fact that we've invested so much heavily into the youth academy, and in this season our release list, there's about 5 or 6 youth academy players who have came through who have played first team football and done well, like Cochrane, Lewis Moore being another one, and they're not getting retained because they're not getting opportunities.
So you would say passion is what you'd look for?
I think that's a big underestimated factor. You need someone who's going to go and play for the club, for the fans, rather than just easy paycheck at the end of the day.
I think to counteract that, just before James jumps in there, I think passion's good, but it only works at certain clubs. I feel. So I feel like
you look at Tierney at Arsenal.
I'm going to clip that. What Mitchell just said.
Fair enough. But as Martin said, Tierney at Celtic, Tierney at Arsenal was like
the right amount. Aye.
It's like the passion didn't really change too much between the two, I don't feel, and yet he's still a good player for them. Arsenal's always playing out of position a bit more, but he works both ways, and I think it's the same with like you couldn't just take a very passionate player from, say, someone like St Johnson, who are all good works and very passionate. You couldn't take him and then just stick him in the Celtic side or the Rangers side, because as much as passion's there, he won't have the same abilities at times.
Aye, but there was always a saying that I always try to use when I coach kids. Hard work beats talent, but hard work only beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So you need to, if you can have the talent and the hard work, you can get there. But just having hard work can sometimes be enough if the talent's just if the talented players aren't have they got the attitude or the passion.
So Mitchell, you're not a massive fan of passion then?
No, I like passion, but I feel like, as Martin said, it gets to a point.
Another clip.
I feel like I'm just gonna keep on putting myself in holes here, but hey ho.
Another clip.
So Martin, another thing that you were talking about youth development there, and how talking about talent. How would you judge talent? And I ask this because, I'm a big fan of expected goals and packing and Graham Potter. So if you look at...
You're a big fan of packing Graham Potter?
Packing is Alex, so he can move to Tottenham Stadium, where he's going to be revealed as the manager because Conte rejected us. But maybe another manager rejecting a team I support.
What's your count now?
8. I'm going to run out of fingers. But no, the notion of people, when they judge footballing talent, say, "Oh, he can strike the ball well, or he's a good passer." Why is space not space in this out of space, but the ability to find space on the football pitch?
I think that's a massive thing.
Yeah,
The ability to find and use space or see
Yeah.
space.
see
For people
space
going
and use it,
Um,
and they exploit it
the
with passion.
there's
Try the holes and exploit them.
there's a couple of things that I would look for in a football player. You get a lot of players now that they're well coached, well drilled, they're neat and tidy. Who can I sort of put into this category? You're kind of like Stephen Mallon, or you're even Gregor. That they're neat and they're tidy. They'll take the ball, they'll pass the ball.
Oh dear.
So
Continue.
So there's a lot of players that are neat and tidy. They'll pass the ball, they'll control the ball. A lot of them slow the game down. The sort of centre midfielders, you can see they can play. You can see they've got the stature, they've got the speed, they've got the. But if you're not using the ball to your advantage enough, if you've not got an end product, if you're not changing games, then you're not doing anything really. You need to be a player that is affecting a game, and it's somebody that's
is buckling Shahan. He's got his head in his hands.
He's crying, poor boy. Do you know what it is? He's just so passionate about this topic.
I'm not even sure what it is. So I think it's end product. Ken, you have all these wingers that are brilliant. They'll get past the player, and they'll not be able to put a ball in the box. So for me, end product is a massive thing. And even though they try to coach it out to players extremely young, the desire to win, there's a non-winning thing all the way up to 11, 12 years old now, and you then have to start instilling the wanting to win thing.
Yeah, it's all about like the scores can't be publicised, eh?
Yes, so even my lad Aston, he's going to 11s this year. So this will be his first year of us being able to compete for cups and be able to compete for leagues. So the season that I think he's got his last game on Saturday there, no scores reported, no nothing. But this season,
They're two up. Say it with conviction. And
Yeah.
2 up.
I just always say you're 2 up with conviction, and that's how it works at 5-a-side. What's the score? We're 2 up. We're 2 up. Are we? I thought we were 5. There we go. No, we're 2 up. All right, you're 2 up. Works every time.
Haven't even scored a goal yet. 2 up. Definitely 2 up.
To go back on the point
At
about
least
space.
10-1.
To go on the point about space is a very
No,
good.
because that's what set me off. Let's just not go there again.
No,
Space is massively important, though.
it is, and the thing is, I think that's why a lot of Chelsea fans, and why me in particular, I'm looking forward to seeing Billy Gilmore play for Scotland, is that he seems to be able to do a lot in tight spaces.
Did you see as we run the day?
I didn't. I missed that. But he seems to be able to do loads. Like, he gets the ball played in, whether he's under pressure, he's in a tight space, he can get out, as Mitchell said, exploit the holes. He's very good at with his feet. You know what I mean? And I think that it can't be underrated, because he was kind of one of the biggest prospects coming through Scottish football at a young age. You know, we heard James mention last week Ryan Gauld as well. Similar sort of style of play, a small midfielder. Ryan Gauld a bit more attacking, being able to exploit tight spaces and find passes that not many people would. Yeah, so I think space is a very big thing when talking about prospects and when looking at potential transfers.
I think it all comes down to, like, when it comes to exploiting space, it comes down to what you're looking for as a player. Like I say, if you're looking for like a centre mid, like Billy Gilmore or someone like that who can exploit the space in midfield, or like a striker, but at the same time you wouldn't be looking for that in a centre back. So I think when you look at talent, it changes on every single position. and changes on how you play football as well. So it comes down to managers.
For centre backs, you want to see them how they can anticipate the space, what's going to be created, and how they can close it down. But for a striker, I think as Chelsea fans on this,
it's the spacing behind you want them to exploit.
Chelsea fans on the call will know that Timo Werner gets into very good position.
Timo Werner should be an amazing player
and can't score.
Always a half a second.
So as well as space and anticipation, I think penetration is also important because
always a bit of penetration.
If he could score goals, Shahan's just disappointed about Timo Werner this season.
James, it's not just about penetration; it's about finishing it off when you get through. Once you find the hole, you need to finish.
But I think a lot of that's doing a good warm up though. I think a lot of players they don't start properly. You can warm up and make sure everything's sort of stretched out before you.
We're going slightly off topic here. We're talking about warm up, and this is transfer strategy.
So I would also like to jump in with a comment about another Chelsea comment actually. It's a lot of players play certain positions and they're not suited to certain managers. So I want to speak about Victor Moses, who was a terrible player, and then was it Conte that came in and started playing 3-5-2? He never got his game.
Yes. No. He didn't.
Then Conte came in and started playing a 3-5-2, and it turns out he's not a winger at all. He's a wing back. And then Conte left, and Chelsea changed their formation. They can't get a game anymore. I mean, I don't know why any other team in the Premiership didn't say, right, well, we play a 3-5-2. Let's get Moses in because he's an extremely good wing back.
And on the flip side,
it's all about that. It's trying to get that player in that position, that player that you need to play the position that you want him to play, how you want him to play.
Yeah, and just to see in your transfer strategy, like on the flip side of that, I'll make a Spurs comment here. Matt Docherty, he's a right wing back for Wolves. Can't play.
It's a prick.
Struggles to play right back in a back four though.
He's ex-Hibs and he's prick.
Yeah.
The last point I'm going to make on this, Mitchell said about your kind of wants and needs changes per position. Centre back. Everyone always assumes centre back, big, tall, strong person.
It's changed.
You know what I mean? But it has changed, definitely. Well, maybe not. But look at like Marquinhos for PSG. He is 5'10", and he's, in my opinion, one of the best centre backs in European football at the moment. Just because of the way he plays his game.
Cavalio's another one.
So it's one of these things that your wants and needs changes per position. Do you want a lot of people like one top and one smaller now?
Well, I think for centre backs, you want the Beauty and the Beast combination. Ferdinand, who can.
Ferdinand Vidic.
Ferdinand Vidic. Vidic was a pure beast.
Which one's the beauty in that one?
Ferdinand's football.
And it has changed to a degree. It used to be your that was your strikers. You had a big man, wee man striker, a runner and a ball winner. Now it's a big man, wee man, or a runner and a tall, strong one, centre halves.
But before we continue talking about the transfer strategy, I'm just going to ask people for one attribute that they would want to see in every player that they would recommend for the team that they support. So it's a hypothetical question. Gavin, are you sticking with passion?
Yeah, I have to, just because how little the players have cared for the club in the past, and it pisses fans off, especially Hearts ones who expect a lot from what we have. So yeah, I'm sticking with passion.
Good. Shahan?
Hard work. Like they need to be wanting to do it 100% every single time they're on the park.
Mitchell?
I'm going to go for being a Chelsea fan. I think the big attribute I'd go for would be creativity. Currently, I think the rest is like someone that can work, can obviously still do the dirty side of the game to a degree, but someone that's got that creative spark to try something that no one else would do, try those risky passes. So maybe more bravery in that sense.
Martin?
I'm going to go with intelligence. Everybody reads intelligence as different things, and I just stole James's, obviously. And then there's certain points that there's certain points in a game. It's like being 2-1 up, a couple of minutes to go, and somebody's trying to hit a shot, or fouls the striker to give them free kick and give somebody a chance to pop the ball in the other box. Intelligence is huge for me. I don't think there's an excuse not to be an intelligent on a football pitch. If you've been playing from 6-7-year-old and you've made it to professional level.
Well, because you've nicked intelligence, I'm going to go for determination. Go for proper cliche. I want people to be determined as well. Determination is slightly different from passionate. Passionate means you can get distracted because your passions run high, whereas determined, you stay focused on the task in hand.
So basically, somebody stole your board and just twisted somebody else's.
Yeah, James, to back that point up though, I saw a thing today on Chelsea's fan page on Facebook, and it was Billy Gilmour and his dad talking, and he was saying that his dad taught him, make sure you're 100%, 110% determined going into a tackle. Don't go in it half-heartedly. I know this is something that Martin teaches the kids that he coaches, is that you need to make sure you want him to go in to win every ball, not pussyfoot around it, basically.
Is that what you did last weekend? Bends your leg.
Aye, 110% determination.
I would get a game with James's team.
Basically, what Billy Gilmour's dad said to Billy Gilmour was, "I'll make a man out of you."
Aye, pretty much.
Okay, let's get down to business.
I think when you look at you're a smaller physique player like Gilmour, it is sort of trying to make sure that you put yourself about and sort of win the ball, whereas it isn't really his game. Like Gam says, he's good at ball control, he's good at reflex, and as we run the day, I think McKenna had a shot, rebound came out. I think Dykes had it and laid off Gilmour, and he just gave him a hospital ball. And Gilmour's flicked it over one player, jigged past another player, and managed to hit a shot on goal that if it had went in, it'd been up there against Archie Gemmels. But
talking about hospitals, I'm going to bring this topic to an end because I don't know if you saw this week that Casualty, the TV show, has been brought to an end after 32 years, and that's based in a hospital. So they're
not Holby City.
We're getting thin. We're getting thin.
James, at least get your reference right if you're going to make a reference. Come on.
I think you just quoted me from earlier in the podcast. I don't care. I don't watch the show.
I love a Bundy segue.
But it was keeping in theme. And I mentioned Holby City, which we did mention, not Casualty. We mentioned that.
Technically hospital though.
Hey, they're recorded.
Well, hospital, BBC. I think Casualty was a good guess. It was 1 out of 2. Plus it was
50-50 chance you got wrong.
50-50 chance? 100% wrong.
100. I didn't go 110% in.
He wasn't determined by his answer, but he was passionate about it. So I'm not for it.
I wasn't intelligent about it anyway.
But no, so television show and the BAFTAs tonight, and currently, well, an hour ago at least, the BAFTAs were trending on Twitter. And to finish off, we have our traditional roundtable where we try and make a ridiculous question out of what is trending on Twitter. So this is my first attempt. So the best sports-related song that has been on a TV or film, and the best TV or movie that is sports-related. So maybe you can answer the second one first because it is tough.
Got it.
Sports-related
But-
song.
Got it.
Gavin's
Got it.
going to pick the movie that he starred in. So
How did you know?
the Three Amigos.
no, he played for Newcastle and became half that words came on my head again. Real Madrid.
Real
Real
Madrid,
Madrid.
yeah.
Go.
And then
I still have the funniest bit of that film is still him on the weights machine with his legs, and then Alan Shearer takes over, takes a pin to the bottom and takes a pin to the top and puts it right to the bottom, and then that's
Yep.
favourite bit of the film.
So
That's what I do in the gym.
Yes, my favourite sports film has to be Goal, following the underdog story of Santiago Munez, going from poverty in Mexico to playing for the amazing Newcastle United and then Real Madrid. And then, has anyone seen the third one?
yes,
Yes, Pish.
that's a World Cup one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a World Cup one, yeah.
that's when he moved to the old firm. He was 36 years old, tried to prove himself in the SPFL.
No, I think you find he actually signed for Spurs at the end of the film, mate.
That's why it was so bad.
Yes, exactly. So that's my favourite film in terms of sports-related song in a movie or a TV program. I think it has to be Eye of the Tiger,
Oh, that was
just
nice.
because it's one of those ones that it gets you pumped up. And I'm going to totally listen to that when I'm not watching Mayweather knock Paul out tonight.
So cause Shahan's just had his nicked, I'm going to go to Mitchell.
He looks raging.
No, I think Mitchell may have the same film as me. He's got that sort of.
I don't think I do, Martin. I think I've got a vastly different film.
I think I know which film Mitchell will pick, but I'm not going to say it.
No, I want you to guess.
James, you ruined mine, so ruin Mitchell.
Yes, I don't think either of you
So-
got it.
I think
James,
Mitchell's
I just
going to pick Cool Runnings.
No, nowhere close.
James,
I was close to that one.
can I ask the question again? So you want a film, like a sports-related film, and then a song that's been played in one of those films, TV
Yeah.
series or something like that?
Just or any sports related song whatsoever.
Yeah, you can go for that to make it more broad.
Cool. That's what I went for. Go on then, Mitchell. What's your film?
My film is going to be one that none of these would have guessed. It's going to be Concussion. Will Smith. It's about the NFL doctor. NFL's set in Pittsburgh. Steelers fan, obviously. And it's basically how they discover about concussion because all the former players are dying. And obviously no more protection. The song, I shall get back to you on that because I still haven't thought of one yet.
Right, I'll give you my film. It's probably more to do with me coaching kids than anything else. And I thought Mitchell would have went this direction, but he didn't. Mighty Ducks.
Mighty Ducks, actually. I did think Mighty Ducks.
The Ducks was awesome, and even the second and third one were actually decent as well. I do know that there's a series sequel thing now that I've not actually seen at all. I don't want to watch it because it'll ruin the original. Emilio Estevez and the little ships on the ice rink. So that's the film I'd go with. I'll let somebody else jump in with I've got a song, but I wanted to give it a better song.
Shahan.
So I do have two movies, and I'll tell you the first one, but no one's going to get the reference. It's, the movie's called Mary Kom, and it's about an Olympic boxer who won gold medal in 2012 Olympics, and she's from India. But it's an Indian movie, so nobody would have watched it. So my British movie or the UK English movie would be Blindside.
Westerners.
Right, I think that's a brilliant movie.
Aye.
I have my song,
Right.
Thunderstruck, Thunderstruck in the Longest Yard.
Yep.
I've got two movies. First one, Moneyball.
Yeah. I wonder why.
And the second one, Coach Carter.
Oh, that's
I like that. I like that.
Good shout.
Great shout.
There's a couple of American football films that are pretty good.
That's
Something about the
Martin-
Titans. Something Titans.
Martin,
Remember
Clash
the
of the Titans.
Titans.
Remember the Titans.
No, I remember the Titans. Remember?
Martin, none of the films that James mentioned there were American football references, by the way.
Yeah.
I know.
The
Coach
two-
Carter
basketball.
with basketball.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of American football ones that I can think of that are
Well, I said
they're
to.
all along the same lines that are pretty good. I'll still name a song. I'm trying to think of a soppy sort of Kiss the Girl song, but I'm going to go with Snooker Loopy. Now, you might not be aware of during the 80s and early 90s. What they used to do constantly was get professionals to sing the songs. So you had like My United team would sing the My United song for that year. So they had it for every team. And John Barnes, actually the Liverpool song, John Barnes rapped on, and that got famous. That was brilliant. But there was something called Snooker Loopy, and it's
Can
where
you give
all
us
the
a few
snooker
lines?
players of Snooker Loopy
Yes.
or
Give us a
of
few
the John
bars.
Barnes song.
No,
Snooker Loopy.
Snooker Loopy. It was like Dennis Taylor and Ronnie O'Sullivan. That Snooker Loopy, nuts are we? I can't even remember all the words yet. It was a tune. See, Gavin knows it. So they had that phase in time where all the professionals would think that they could sing. So either Snooker Loopy or the Liverpool song where John Barnes started rapping in.
Is that the one where he goes, "You need to get in round the back," or is that an England song?
Yes, aye, that's one.
Yeah, okay. I
And again, I'm trying to remember the rap, and I can't think of the lyrics.
So Shahan, your song.
So we don't have a song.
Is that not Felton John?
Yeah.
Right. In the Rocky movie, right, there was another one. I think that's when he's training, not Eye of the Tiger. It's Gonna Fly Now.
Yeah. I know what song you're on about. I did go through my head.
That one.
Right.
I'm surprised James never said Space Jam earlier on his favourite film.
Space Jam was. And unfortunately, all the films are sort of Americanized. There was a film that Alan McCoist and Pelly was in. Oh, what was that called?
What a cast list. Ali McCoist.
Pelly.
Sorry. Pelly. Ali McCoist.
I'm going. What was the name of that film again? It was
one that I quite liked, and it was on Apple TV this year, was Ted Lasso, which is basically a student, like high school American football coach, somehow becomes the manager of Crystal Palace. Essentially, that's who it is.
What's that called? I was searching for that. What's it called?
Ted Lasso. So my first name, and then Lasso.
Like what he does to the girls at the weekend.
A shot at glory with Duval in it, Robert Duval. I'm sure Pelly was in it. Alan McCoist is in it. One worth watching.
Well, I would recommend Ted Lasso as well. But for my song, which I've not given yet, it is from Remember the Titans. And it's when they're in the changing room. American football players, got the image of being tough and strong. But a cover is not a book. And I think it's important to remember that. And when they just broke down into Ain't No Mountain High Enough in that movie, that was a good scene. Mm-hmm. I was jamming along. Not space jamming. Just
jamming.
Mitchell, did you give a song?
Mm-hmm.
Thunderstruck.
Oh, yeah.
Longest Yard.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you for watching this episode of the Sports Hut podcast. Please comment your favourite sporting related movies and songs in the comments below. Nobody's watching at this point, so I could really say anything if I wanted to.
Does anybody actually get this far? Wait a minute, Mitchell, did you watch last week's episode and did you get this far?
I did not.
Well, just watch it and reach this far. Nope. Genuinely.
Yeah, we've got to encourage people to exploit all the space that's in our comment section.
Well,
Yeah.
Mitchell, I'm
It's
telling
nice and tight.
you, watch it.
Empty. It's waiting for the first person.
Full of waterfalls.
Mitchell, I'm telling you, watch it. Love, lies, bleeding.
Wait,
Just
now,
watch it. Just watch it.
for the one person I know makes it this far, Ian Milne, Rangers are shite.
So, Stephen Gerrard, is he going to Everton?
He wouldn't
Uh,
take the step up. I don't think he'd manage it as such
Nah.
a big club.
It's too big a step for him, out of his depth.
Nah, he's too big a
I
step.
think he's got to stay here and kind of win a couple more before he takes that step. I would say.
I think there's more
I don't-
chance
I
of
don't
Logan
think he'll
Paul,
win anything.
Logan Paul, whatever one's boxing to win tonight than that happens.
Perhaps we can
time's
use
the-
this as in another podcast.
Yeah. Well, before we go into another conversation,
Yes,
like us
that's
on
exactly.
Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks for watching.
It's a Sports Hut podcast.